as requested, in our morning classes, I'll be discussing prayers of Queen Kunti. There's the same picture you saw yesterday evening. There's Queen Kunti on the left. There's Krishna in the center. And there's Krishna's chariot driver. Must be a long chariot ride to go all the way from Hastinapur to Dwaraka. And you see behind Kunti is a big crowd. Krishna's chariot is in the middle of the main plaza of the Hastinapur city. Krishna is going to leave, and Kunti is approaching Krishna. Not exactly saying, please don't leave, but saying, please don't leave. And Krishna is going to gently respond at the end of these prayers. There's a nice verse at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita within the introduction, where similar mood to the mood of Queen Kunti's prayers. We can say it together. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Translation taken from the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. My dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Now, throughout this presentation, there's going to be recordings, like we did yesterday. And the first of these recordings is this same verse, the invocation verse for this series. And you can hear the recording and you can respond if you like.
Krishna Karuna Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute.
Again, the translation. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. The painting that you see on the right is the cover of the BBT publication of Teachings of Queen Kunti. It was made into a separate book. It's such an important series. And it's the Teachings of Queen Kunti, the prayers of Queen Kunti. Here's a little overview, quickly, summary. There's abundant humility expressed in her prayers. She is such an exalted Vaishnavi, very dear to Krishna. Krishna is very dear to her. And as an elevated Vaishnava is humble, she's maximum humble. It's in so many of her prayers. One of the topics that's touched on in several of the prayers of Queen Kunti is the distinction between bhakti and gyan, the unlimitedness of bhakti and the limitedness of gyan. To understand Krishna, that is, he can't be understood through gyan. And thus, to a worldly non-devotee person, even a very scholarly person, he remains inconceivable. This is going to come in the very second verse, this word javanika. Javanika means a curtain, the curtain of Yogamaya. He's covered from the vision of worldly people, even great scholars, and remains inconceivable unto them because this javanika. And those who have him as their only shelter, which is what we heard yesterday evening, the Pandavas, the Vrishnis, and herself, he will always offer his protection because they see Krishna as their only shelter. And throughout, especially towards the latter part of her prayers, there's big emphasis on his apparently contradictory features. And we'll see this little slide several times as we go along because there's lots of apparent contradictions. Of course, it's not different than what the Upanishads say. Some of you are familiar with Ishopanishad. He walks and he does not walk. He's far away and he's near as well. He's within everything and he's outside of everything. Those are contradictory. We can be in the room or outside the room, but we can't be in the room and outside the room. But Krishna can be within everything and outside of everything. No problem. And that's made possible by his inconceivable potencies or Chintya Shakti. So let's move forward. Queen Kunti's prayers starts with text 18 of chapter 8. So here's Sri Rupa singing very nicely this first verse, and we can respond after she sings.
Alaksham sarvabhutanam antarbahirabhastitam Namaste Vishampam Ishwaram Prakritevaram Alaksham sarvabhutanam antarbahirabhastitam Kunti uvacha Namaste Purusham Tvatyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param Alaksham Sarvabhutanam Antarbahirabhastitam Namaste Purusham Tvatyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param
Oh, Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. So I'm going to take you a walk through Jiva Goswami's commentary. Nice explanation. I offer my respects to you, the Supreme Person, the Original One, the controller beyond the control of Prakriti, unseen by the material senses and existing inside and outside of all living beings. So what he's going to do is he's going to take each of the words, or most of the words, and Krishna is going to respond to each of the words or most of the words in a contradictory or different meaning than was intended. Understanding everything that Krishna had done recently. What had Krishna done recently? He arranged for the Kurukshetra battle. He arranged for Yudhisthira to be installed on the throne. He finished Shishupal. He did many, many things. Kunti was unable to tolerate the agitation caused by the great respect that arose in her heart. So, humility and great respect. Thus she began praising Krishna. And Krishna is responding, but I'm your nephew. Why are you offering me respects? Kunti, but you are the Supreme Lord, Purusham. Krishna, of course I'm a man, Purusham. There's no doubt about that. You are the first one, Adyam. Krishna, well, all bodies come and go, all souls are original, Adyam. But you are the supreme, Ishvara. In Swarga, Indra, and the moon god, and on earth the kings are controllers, Ishvaras. Kunti. But you are superior to Prakriti. Krishna, am I the Purusha within? Paramatma? Kunti, no. You are imperceptible, alaksham. The Paramatma is subject to revelation by use of intelligence and other means. Krishna, am I the imperceptible Brahman? Kunti, no. You are situated internally and externally. It's to play on words, but to illustrate the graphic significance of Kunti's praise and her realizations of who is Krishna. So let's take a look at this phrase, alaksham sarvabhutanam antar bahir avastitam. Antar and bahir means within and without. And avastitam means you're situated. And although you're situated both within and without all living entities, you're invisible, alaksham. Laksham means to see, and with the prefix a in front is you're not visible, not perceivable. Krishna, you reside both inside and outside of everything, yet the unintelligent conditioned soul cannot see you. And there's a very similar idea, as Kunti is expressing, found in Bhagavad Gita, which says, one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead through jnana chakshusha, eyes of knowledge. He who opens these eyes of knowledge is called the spiritual master. Now, looking ahead, we can't see him because he's covered by this, remember what the word? Javanika. It's coming in the next verse. The Lord is covered by the curtain of Yoga Maya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. So, Javanika is a phrase that means this curtain, but even more specifically, it's the curtain of Maya. And persons covered by the curtain of Maya cannot see Krishna, although he's within and without everything. So that's the first verse. That was pretty quick, isn't it? And it leads into the next verse, text 19.
Maya Javanika Channa Atyadoksha Jamapyayam Nalakshase Mudha Drisha Natya Dharo Yata Maya Javanika Channa Atyadoksha Jamapyayam Nalakshase Mudha Drisha Maya Javanika Channa Atyadoksha Jamapyayam Nalakshase Mudha Drisha Natya Dharo Yata Maya Javanika Channa Atyadoksha Jamapyayam Nalakshase Mudha Drisha
There you see in the first line the word Javanika, but it has an adjective, Maya Javanika, so the curtain of Yoga Maya covers Chandam, one cannot see him, and Agyana, Agyanokshajam, so avyayam, inconceivable, being beyond the range of limited sense perception. You are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. Now, sometimes Prabhupada would use this very same metaphor, saying sometimes a family member or a child is seeing another family member on a stage and they can't, who is that? Because they don't recognize because they have costumes. And so sometimes Krishna appears in certain ways such that people don't recognize him. But behind the mask or behind the costume is his true identity. There's a nice Iskcon painting of Maya Shakti. In the center of that painting is the three modes of material nature, deluding living entities so they cannot see. And when they see something, they see the appearance of that something, but not the something. Like the example of a rope and a snake. So there's a snake, and there it's moving. So it looks like a real snake, but it's not a real snake, it's a rope. In a similar manner, I'm going to spend some time with this example. This is the Katyayani Vrata. You know about this pastime? Katyayani Vrata? You're not sure. During Krishna's childhood pastimes, the young gopi girls desired Krishna as their husband. And during the month of January, which is really, really, really cold in Vrindavan. There's a certain vrata called the Katyayani vrata, and the girls, for 1 month, the coldest month of the year, they would go to the bank of the river Jamuna, observe fasting the whole day, and breaking fast in the morning, and they would go to the side of the river Jamuna and worship Katyayani. Now, who is Katyayani? One of the meanings of Katyayani is a name Durga. Many of you know the pastime when Kamsa tried to kill Yogamaya and raised the small girl up in the air and was ready to smash the child on a slab of stone. She slipped from his hand and manifested a form of Durga. You know that pastime. And when she manifested that form of Durga, what Krishna had said, after this event happens, he'll try to kill you. He won't be able because you're my potency. He can't. You'll spread yourself throughout the land and you'll be known by different names. This is Krishna speaking to Yogamaya. And one of those names is Katyayani. So Katyayani, one of the meanings of Katyayani is Durga in the material world. So they're worshiping Katyayani, but they're not worshiping the material feature of Katyayani. They're worshiping the spiritual feature of Katyayani. Meaning, Yogamaya can transform herself into Durga, or the object and the shadow of the object have a relationship. Durga has a relationship with Yogamaya. So they're actually worshiping Yogamaya because, our acharyas explain, it's only through Yogamaya that one can become married with Krishna. Say it again. It's only through the agency of Yogamaya that one can become Krishna's wife, or in a direct relationship with Krishna. So they're worshiping Katyayani, and then after worshiping Katyayani, they say various prayers. It's right in the Bhagavatam. The prayer, it's interesting. All the girls were non-envious. So imagine some number of girls that all want the same boy as their husband, and they have no envy towards one another. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But they all wanted the same person, boy. Now they're little girls, that is, in Vedic culture, little girls were married when they were little. They didn't live with their husband, but they, on the birthday of their husband, they would bring some cooked foods and they'd have some nice exchange, and they knew who they were married to. And the young boy knew who he was married to. And so when they grew up and became mature, they lived together as husband and wife, but they're married, even at this little age. So they wanted Krishna as their husband. They're worshiping Katyayani. They're village girls, so they didn't have much material asset. So they made the murti of Katyayani out of earth and water, means mud. And then when the mud dried, that was the deity. Then they decorated the deity and they worshiped the deity. You see the deity there by the side of the river has many arms, because Durga has many arms to punish the atheists. So they worshipped, and then they took their bath in the river Jamuna. And the procedure was they would leave their clothing by the side of the river, and in the freezing cold water, take their bath even before the sun came up. So it was still really cold. So what did Krishna do? Being omniscient, he knew their desire. So he came, and it's Vastra Hari. Vastra Hari means one who takes away, and Vastra means their clothing. So he gathered up all their clothing, sat in a tree. There's Katyayani at the base of the tree, and said, if you want your clothing, you have to come forward, one by one. So it's a childhood pastime, and it's a nice pastime. There's a nice place where this occurred, along the bank of the river Jamuna. So the idea here, the reason why I'm going into this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 22. There's on the left side, that's Durga riding on a lion, arms with different weapons, etc. The commentary says, each of the young unmarried gopis performed her worship while chanting the following mantra. O Goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Maharaj Nanda my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. So they're making that prayer to Katyayani, but it's not possible for Katyayani to arrange for Krishna as one husband. So here's what the commentary writes, Bhagavatam. According to various acharyas, the goddess Durga mentioned in this verse is not the illusory energy of Krishna called Maya, but rather the internal potency of the Lord known as Yogamaya. The distinction between the internal and external, or illusory potency of the Lord, is described in the Narada Pancharatra in the conversation between Shruti and Vidya. So what's Shruti? Shruti is the Vedas personified. Shruti is the Vedas personified. And Vidya is knowledge personified. So it must be an elevated conversation. This is commentary from the Bhagavatam. The Lord's inferior potency, known as Durga, is dedicated to his loving service. Being the Lord's potency, this inferior energy is not different from him. There is another superior potency whose form is on the same spiritual level as that of God himself. Simply by scientifically understanding the supreme potency, one can immediately achieve the supreme soul of all souls, who is the Lord of all lords. There is no other process to achieve him. That supreme potency of the Lord is known as Gokuleshwari, the goddess of Gokula. Her nature is to be completely absorbed in love of God, and through her one can easily obtain the primeval God, the Lord of all that be. The internal potency of the Lord has a covering potency known as Maya, Mahamaya, that's this Javanika. That's why I'm doing all of this. So covered by the deluding potency known as Mahamaya, who rules the material world. In fact, she bewilders the entire universe, and thus everyone within the universe falsely identifies himself with the material body. So persons that have association of the Yogamaya potency, they have the potential of understanding Krishna, as Queen Kunti does. And although she's in contact with the internal potency, she is still bewildered. We're going to hear further as we go along. So these gopis have a very special position in their loving relation with Krishna. They're aspiring to be wives in a conjugal relation with Krishna and having no envy between one another. Quite unique. Srimati Radharani is at the center here. Here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this verse. I do not know you, covered by the screen of Maya, beyond the knowledge of the material senses and unaffected, just as a puppeteer behind the screen moving the puppets is not understood by the eyes of the ignorant. So here's a photograph of a puppet playing a violin. If you look closely, you can see the strings dangling down, and somehow puppeteers are able to make this puppet violinist play the violin. Don't know exactly how that works because his left hand has to move on the strings. But in any case, the puppet is playing the violin because the puppeteer is having the puppet play the violin. So ignorant people see only the puppet playing a violin, and intelligent people understand this is happening because there's a puppeteer in the background. So Krishna is that. And without proper knowledge of Krishna in the background, one only sees the external feature of Maya. Further commentary reads, since internally you protect the child in the womb, you protected the child in the womb of Uttara, it was Maharaj Parikshit, right? Krishna protected Maharaj Parikshit. You protected the child in the womb of Uttara, and externally you protect us by being near us. That's Queen Kunti. Should I understand that you are all-pervading? I do not know. That is expressed in this verse. So there's the child in the womb of Uttara. Response. You are covered by the curtain, Javanika, of Maya. Krishna. Then Maya covers me? Reply. It is like the fool who thinks that the sun is covered by a cloud. I see you as covered because my vision is covered by Maya, because you're beyond sense knowledge at Hoksajam. Sense knowledge, Akshajam, Jnanam, is situated below you, Adha. I do not have the power to contact you, since my knowledge arises from my senses, like the knowledge of a fool. But even if despicable people like me do not know you, there is no loss for you. You remain unaffected by this. Or avyayam. Avyayam, different meanings, but non-manifest or not visible. So you remain, that some persons can see you and some persons cannot see you. Krishna's position isn't changed. For you, there's no loss if persons like me, Queen Kunti is saying, cannot see you. There's a photograph of an eclipse. So the light behind, this is a solar eclipse, behind the burning sun, there's some effulgence behind the moon, but the sky is quite dark. So one cannot see the fullness of the sun when there's an eclipse like this. So Krishna may say, but you see me directly and praise me. You know that I am beyond Prakriti. Then why do you criticize yourself as being ignorant? Good point, isn't it? She's not an ordinary person, Krishna might argue. You can see all these things, so why are you calling yourself ignorant? Though the dancer is endowed with rhythms and dance steps suitable to the rasa, the ignorant spectator, ignorant of the scriptures delineating performance, sees only a dancer dancing. Though he sees, he does not really see. Similarly, although I see you, I really do not see you. The word tata, or similarly, should be understood from the context. though you protect the Pandavas, your devotees, since you are the soul within all of us constantly, you personally counteracted the weapon of Ashvatthama meant for killing the Pandavas. Ashvatthama? Yes? Okay. So he sent that Brahmastra to kill, that not exactly the Pandavas, but to kill, yeah, okay, just go on. The womb, the child in the womb of Uttara. Though you promised not to use weapons, you took up a weapon. Though you protect the righteous, you had Bhishma and other righteous persons destroyed because Bhishma was dying on the bed of arrows. Though you are most affectionate to Draupadi and Subhadra, you let their sons be killed. I do not know the truth about your pastimes. So we're entering already into these contradictory features. And they're contradictory features, the point is, they're not going to be understood by knowledge. Gyan cannot penetrate into the mysteries. And therefore, this is the Javanika of Maya. He remains inconceivable to such persons. In him, all contradictory qualities rest and are reconciled. Same message. Very interesting set of prayers. We'll cover one more verse for this morning, and let's see how far we get. Here's text 20, so we covered 18, 19. Here's 20.
Tatha paramahamsanam vinamalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanata tam pashimahi striya. Tatha paramahamsanam vinamalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanata Tatha paramahamsanam vinamalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanata tam pashimahi striya. Tatha paramahamsanam vinamalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanata tam pashimahi striya.
You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Now this is once again humility, because she's most qualified. The qualification is not gender. The qualification is not, she doesn't have the acumen of intellectual discernment that some Gyanis have. Those that have the intellectual capacity, they can't understand you. So what about me and people like me? It's pointing to the bhakti process, as you remember from the very beginning, in contrast to the Gyan process. The bhakti process has power that the Gyan process doesn't have. So here's a nice yogi who is trying to understand the Absolute. And here's another nice yogi trying to understand the Absolute. He has a different practice, a different sadhana. Here's another yogi who's trying to understand the Absolute Truth, and they're not able to understand Krishna. So Kunti is stating, what about us? Our us women folk? How can we women hope to see you, the object of bhakti, for the omniscient, liberated sages? The object of bhakti for the omniscient, liberated sages. We don't have those gifts, those qualifications. How are we going to understand you? She's bewildered in one sense. It's by Krishna's kindness that she's speaking like this. Here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. I am hopeless as a woman. Can even the omniscient sages, paramahamsas, who worship you with attraction for your sweet pastimes, being ignorant of the truth about your pastimes, know the intricacies of your pastimes? So I don't, and there are persons that are far more qualified than me who cannot understand. So what's the hope? Amalatmanam refers to those who are freed from the contamination of material gunas. So mala and amala. Amala means spotless. Mala means having contamination. So those who are free from the contamination from what? The modes of nature. So even those freed from the contamination of the modes of nature cannot understand you, the liberated souls. And what about us? In the verse, Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartham. Krishna is understood by the bhakti process. No, she's a bhakta. She's a pure bhakta. And she's not considering herself to be like that, or a paramahamsa. Here's Prabhupada's comment. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who's a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. Kunti teaches us the proper mentality required when approaching Krishna. That's humility. She's qualified like anything. She has knowledge like anything. And she has abundant humility. And so she's able to be a recipient of mercy of Krishna, to understand Krishna in a way that persons who have other qualifications besides the humility and bhakti qualification cannot. This is the last in this morning's class. In Bhagavad Sandarbha Anuchet 10, Srila Jiva Goswami comments on Krishna's descent, as mentioned in this text 20. Krishna's descent means his appearance, like Krishna Janmashtami. Quote, why does the Supreme Personality of Godhead come to this world? He comes so that the embodied souls, Shariranam, may learn to fix their thoughts on his lotus feet, and most importantly, so the devotees may taste the happiness of devotional service. So the reference is to make it really clear what reference this is. Yesterday evening, we discussed another one of the Sandarbhas, or a section from it, Priti Sandarbha. Remember? Priti Sandarbha. So this is another one of the Sandarbhas, the Bhagavad Sandarbha. And in the Bhagavad Sandarbha, the topic is Bhagavan, to understand the Supreme Person. So in understanding the Supreme Person, one of the topics he covers there, towards the beginning, is why the Supreme Lord appears. Why does Bhagavan appear in this world? And it's so the embodied souls can learn to fix their thoughts on his lotus feet. And by fixing their minds on his lotus feet, they become inspired in devotional service and they can taste the happiness of devotional service. That's a reason why he appears. And the connection is made to this verse 20 that we just recited and heard a little bit about. For the devotee, let's just reiterate what 20 is saying. She is counting herself amongst the unfortunate and saying there are others who are very fortunate and they can't understand you, great yogis and discerning, elevated jnanis. They can't understand you, so what's the hope for us, women folk? But she can understand. She's saying that she doesn't understand, yet at the same time, that's her humility. She has profound understanding of Krishna, and because of her humility, she's saying otherwise. She understands things about Krishna because Krishna discloses things to her because of her purity of devotion. But she's characterizing herself as if she doesn't understand. She doesn't have devotion. She doesn't have the capacity to understand him. She's not lying. She says these are expressions of her humility. And the punchline is, please don't go. Although I don't understand you, please don't go, because I'm attached to you and I don't want to be attached to anything but you. Please don't go. At the same time, she's reciting his glories that are mysterious, not to be understood by anyone other than the devotees. That's what this slide is saying. When approaching Krishna, humility is imperative. Because humility is a precursor to bhakti. We'll say it the other way. Without humility, bhakti isn't going to manifest. The other way. When humility is there, then it's possible for bhakti to manifest. So if you're trying to become a devotee, try to become humble. Not that you're not, but try to become humble. And what is humility is not the material sense of humility. It's the not having an inflated sense of who you are, and thus, before Krishna, you're very tiny. Because we're very tiny. It's true. We're very tiny. But that doesn't bar us from Krishna's mercy. Krishna is very happy to give his mercy to one who is humble. The meek shall inherit the kingdom of God. It's a universal teaching in spiritual life. Meek doesn't mean you stand in a corner and tremble and you're shy and you can't speak anything, can't do anything because you're meek. It means how you regard yourself in relation to Krishna. Very tiny, quite insignificant. Then one can be very bold in service and still at the same time meek and humble. Again, apparently contradictory, but not at all. It's how the spiritual energy works. Let's see if there's some discussion. And tomorrow we're ready for text 21. Yes.
Maharaj, do you think it would be helpful to, in praying these prayers, to develop this humility?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the questions yesterday was, how do we develop humility? Remember the question yesterday? You associate with those that are humble. one acquires qualities like those with whom one associates. Sangat sanjayate kama in Bhagavad Gita's language. We develop qualities like those with whom we associate. So associate with Kunti and her through her prayers, and the quality, not just the understanding of how profoundly humble she is, but the quality that she has will become your quality by that association. That's how it works. And therefore the association we keep is so important. And reading and hearing in a submissive manner, systematic and submissive manner, the writings of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, etc. How important. But so the answer to your question is yes, humility can become our quality just by her association. And there's certainly other Vaishnavas that have this quality, profound quality. It's intrinsic to bhakti. Yes?
I was contemplating this idea that is being repeated in both 19 and 20 and the 28 verses. We cannot understand, Kunti Maharani is saying that we cannot understand your path, the Lord's pastimes. And she's saying about humility, and she's already a pure devotee. So at our condition level, should we be even trying to know more about the Lord, or should we be focused on loving Him? Just serve instead of trying to know.
Well, they're not so much, I understand your question. How can you really have love for someone without knowing that someone? Or say it, by knowing someone that enhances your love for that someone. Now, by striving for love, it gives you entitlement to know. So there's not, which comes first? The chicken or the egg? It's bhakti that includes both. With whatever the position you're in, you try to serve. And whatever position you're in, you try to know and understand more deeply and profoundly the object of love. They go together. If you want to, which comes first, they go together.
But based on her prayers, it seems like there will come a time when we will no longer want to strive to know, we just want to strive to love. Is that correct?
Well, strive to know. Let me think carefully about what you're asking here. Let's, take the eternal associates of Krishna in the spiritual world, or take the great acharyas. Let's take Jiva Goswami. Things are revealed to him, and he wants to serve, but as he's serving, it's not that he doesn't want to know and only wants to serve. You're breaking it into two pieces, and I'm saying it's not two pieces. Your question again, say it again, I'll say it again. Will there come a time that we will no longer have the desire to understand Krishna more, we just want to serve him? That's your question. Yes?
No, there's a subtle thing here, Mark. I've seen devotees who are learned, scholarly, they've gone deep, they've read so much from the scripture.
Good.
But they come to this point where I still do not have that love for it. So one devotee was sharing with me, I'm trying to unlearn what I know so that I can love more.
It's artificial. This is me. Somebody else might say No, that's perfect. Unlearn what you've learned. I mean, where did that gift of learning, the subject matter that one has learned come from? If one has heard from proper sources, it's those sources. We don't unlearn the relationship that we have with our great acharyas. They're bestowing not separately. They're bestowing bhakti and they're bestowing the glories of the personality of Godhead. Or say it the other way, the love for Krishna grows by hearing the glories of Krishna, the name, fame, quality, pastimes. I'll just, I think I understand your question, and I'm objecting to the framework of the question. It's as if they're two things, and they should be split. And I'm not agreeing with that notion. No, you may hold a different view, and some other else may hold a different view. They're not separate. In the beginning, yes, there's more emphasis on knowing than loving. Common. And to go the other way, supposing some people don't know so much, but they have much love. Such a person has deep knowledge. They may not know passages from Scripture and quote them and cite them, so the essence is love, but love isn't devoid of knowing. And it's more important to love than to know. They're not separate. They're a unit. In practical terms, for you and me, don't worry about it. Engage in the process that is given to us that includes hearing name, form, qualities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord, not for the purpose just of having information. The phrase that I use is information in your information basket. It's not it's a mistake if that's the basis of our hearing is gathering information. And that happens. It doesn't mean the hearing has a purpose. Yes.
It said that if Radharani accepts you, Krishna has to accept you. So it's like even if Krishna rejects you, but then great devotee accepts you, Krishna has to accept you. So without knowing who the Supreme Lord is, ever knowing who he is, his qualities, his form, that your spiritual nectar accepts you, or Radharani accepts you, that to go back to God.
Sure. But, the preamble of your question is supposing Krishna rejects you, which is, a non-reality. Krishna doesn't reject anybody. We, by our discriminating power, we may, but he doesn't. Even when we do, he doesn't. But sufficient to go back to Godhead. What does that mean? Just another topic, but going back to Godhead isn't like getting in an airplane and going from point A to point B. Going back to God is consciousness. One can be back to Godhead in this lifetime without getting in an airplane. My Kunti Vimana. Going back to Godhead is consciousness. Can one become fully Krishna conscious, which is your ticket back to Godhead? It is the condition of back to Godhead, by being accepted by one who is very dear to Krishna. Yes. Then it's not, when it's not, intermittent, like sometimes, sometimes not, sometimes not. It came up yesterday, in the question yesterday, where it's unflinching. Krishna, you're my only shelter, and I have no other shelter. And it's not intermittent. That's the ticket. Yes. Hare Krishna.
My question is about trying to fix our thoughts. At this stage, that's really important. One thing that I encountered came to my mind when you talked about being a cop.
Yeah, Mainaka.
My association, I appreciate people in mode of goodness. I don't see the difference in focus. So
Within yourself or within them?
I see we're on different pages, not on the same page.
The persons who are in the mode of goodness and you are not on the same page. That's what your point, okay.
I mean, young people like us who are
Searching.
still pursuing material careers, and they're thinking of serving the world, and they're thinking of serving the community, but they don't channel that through the sort of God that they think I'll directly serve the community. It's always social philosophy. It's nice, and it's pleasant. It's not the motive factor. I want to better understand Hanuman touches someone on the head. Like, what is that? How can we use that? Should we be careful of their association?
Okay. Well, for starters, respect. And along with respect comes discernment, which grows through sadhu sangha. So while respecting and discerning, so your question specifically is that association going to be detrimental? To the degree that you or I or any one of us can stay focused on reality with a capital R and maintaining the decorum of heart, in both internal and external, of respect and discernment, then no, no, it's not. Should I be? Just don't let your discerning capacity get in the shut off, nor lose respect, because here's somebody that's, as you described, this is the discerning capacity tells me this is where they are, and I respect that. On a fundamental level, the respect, it has everything to do with the topic yesterday. You know, they're a spirit soul, and they're on a trajectory going wherever they're going, and they have this value system, and they have behaviors that are in alignment with their value system, and they want to. It's the discerning capacity tells you what's what, and it's incomplete. But you don't lose respect, nor do you lose your discerning capacity. Supposing you're not strong, that's where there should be some concern. Back to your question. I'm not so strong, and I may be influenced by this and that, and gosh, it's abundant out there. So should I be cautious? Well, be cautious because I'm not very strong. And I may be, my discerning capacity and my respect, spiritual respect, not material, spiritual respect, may get washed away, and I may become influenced by material energy and lose my discerning capacity because I'm not so strong. So then, therefore, move forward cautiously. Don't lose respect and don't lose your discerning capacity. Move forward cautiously, offering kind words and so forth and so on. Then, depending upon the other individual and your ability, your spiritual strength, and your spiritual intelligence, it says maybe they can hear a little bit more. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe if I try to say a little bit more, they'll get miffed and get run the other way. So let me be, Super Soul, please give me the intelligence how to best be of service to this person. I've noticed in dealing with worldly people, like you described, one of the characteristics that helps them make another step when they're kind of content wherever they are, although they're being hammered by the material energy, they're content where they are because they have their ideology and their values and they're striving according to their values, is good character from the devotee that's non-judgmental and internally content and happy and wise. Like that's special. So it's, back to the discussion we had yesterday about conflicts between people. You can have a greater positive bhakti impact upon such people to the degree that you're carrying bhakti and you exhibit the character and qualities of one who's carrying bhakti. Now, go back to your question. Supposing you're not so strong, then yes, you should be cautious, but to the degree that you have some strength, you're carrying bhakti, and it'd just be a perambulatory Bhagavad Gita by your character. And then you're not judgmental. Samoham sarva bhuteshu, see all living entities equally. You can still discern. Krishna discerns, but he doesn't feel partiality towards this one, that one. To the degree that there's spiritual strength, then you can positively impact, be of service to another person by your own character. If they open a door that says, can you say something from the transcendental position? Like, why are you not doing what I'm doing? They may say. They may not say, but if they say something that's in that direction, you can smile, as Hanuman did, and he just touched. He didn't get distracted. They wanted recognition for some past kindness that you've done. Here it is. Now, please permit me. I have important. So. This is culture, and most of us are not. So refinement to come to the position of being cultured, back to the saying, by associating with those that are cultured, you can have qualities like that. Therefore, reading, studying, trying to live by, recognizing my limitation of others that also don't have character and qualities. But let me stay focused on what the goal is. So back to your question, should I be cautious? Yes, depending upon strength. And then you may extend yourself more if there's strength and clarity and purity.
Can you say anything more about what that being of service looks like when you don't want to serve materially, but spiritual service, we know in the ashram is talking about Krishna.
Yes. Well, my answer to a question like this is it depends. And there's so many variables. There's you, there's the other person, there's the circumstance of the other person, there's the relationship, what doors are open, what doors are shut. Supposing, okay, I have just take what you just said. I have the conviction that I should tell others about Krishna. Now, supposing you start telling others about Krishna, they run the other way. That there might have been a better way to do it. So it depends. When doors are open, then you can knock on the door and walk through. And then you see how far you can go, depending upon the vibes from the other person. No, different persons, different devotees have different approaches. Some people have a hammer in their hand, or some people have a book in their hand, or some people, understand this. It's the answer. It depends. I was thinking again. A comment I made yesterday, and I'll say it again because it's appropriate. Close your eyes and imagine. Here's the situation, and if Prabhupada was in this situation, would things get better? Would things stay the same, or would things get worse? They get better. Now, the distinction between me and Prabhupada is purity, and so I need to work on my purity. So that the reflexes goes back to first things first. My purity is first, and then my capacity to discern what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what should I say, not say, how should I say it, and so forth. The discerning capacity, that's buddhi, comes from Supersoul. So what's my relationship? How pure is my connection with Supersoul? So if you dwell in that domain more, then the discerning capacity will be yours, because Supersoul will provide. Now, I'm a social being, and here I am, and I've got these teachings, and I've got this mandate, tell people about Krishna. Still, you have to be discerning. What's an appropriate, effective manner of communicating the message of Krishna to others, or to this particular person in this particular circumstance? When there's purity, Supersoul will give indication. When there isn't purity, then what do? Proceed carefully, thoughtfully, cautiously, and always focusing on introspective way. How can I enhance my spiritual strength and capacity to represent Krishna properly? And then discernment will come, more or less, depending upon where you are in the spiritual path. Anything else? We'll end here. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki.